So, today we're going to dive into a book that is anything but gentle. Seriously. It's this fiery, provocative call to action from the 20th century that honestly still rattles people today. We're looking inside Leonard Ravenhill's Why Revival Tarries and his really urgent plea for something he called unction. Right out of the gate, Ravenhill hits us with this incredible, cutting metaphor. The prayer meeting, he says, is Cinderella, unloved, unwooed. Think about it. It's this humble servant left behind in the dust while her more glamorous sisters get to go to the ball. This one sentence just perfectly sets the stage for his entire argument, that the modern church has forgotten something absolutely vital. All right, so let's dig into this idea. Who exactly is this Cinderella, and why has she been left behind? For Ravenhill, the problem is simple and it's deep. Prayer has been neglected, pushed aside for things that are way more polished and, in his view, pretty superficial. And you can see the contrast he's painting right here. He sees the church getting all dressed up, chasing after glamour. You've got the pearls of intellectualism, the silks of philosophy, even the tiara of psychology. I mean, it all sounds so impressive, right? But the prayer meeting, well, it's just wearing the simple homespuns of sincerity and humility. It isn't afraid to kneel. And for Ravenhill, that's where the real power is. And this, right here, is the real kicker. Ravenhill says the offensive prayer is that you can't just master it with your brain. You can pull off a technically perfect sermon using your memory, your knowledge, maybe a little ambition, but you cannot truly pray without spirituality. See the difference? One can be a performance of the mind. The other has to be a posture of the soul. Okay, so what are the stakes here? What's the big deal if prayer gets neglected? Well, this is where Ravenhill's critique gets incredibly sharp. He argues it directly poisons the very act of preaching itself. Check out this comparison he makes in the book. It's pretty intense. Preaching, he says, works on a human level. It affects other people, and it affects the here and now, time. But prayer operates on a totally different plane. It affects God, and it affects eternity. For him, the distinction couldn't be clearer. One has a temporary impact, and the other has eternal consequences. And then he drops this bombshell. For Ravenhill, preaching that lacks the spiritual element, it isn't just ineffective. It's actually harmful. He says it's a message that kills instead of giving life. And that brings us to the absolute core concept of his entire argument. So he keeps bringing up this word unction. It's the key ingredient, the thing that's missing from all this powerless preaching he's talking about. So you're probably wondering, what on earth is it? You know, what I find so interesting is how Ravenhill himself talks about it. He starts with this incredible humility. He basically says, I can't perfectly define it, but I know what it isn't. He knows it when he sees it, and maybe more importantly, he knows when it's missing. He treats it not like some academic term, but like this mysterious, vital force. Okay, so let's try to pin it down. Based on his writing, unction is basically that indispensable, divine anointing. It's the spiritual power that makes a message truly alive. It's the secret sauce, the difference between a sermon just being a lecture and a sermon being an event where something real and powerful actually happens. And he uses some really powerful descriptions to get the idea across. He says it's not a gentle pat on the back, it's like dynamite. It will pierce and percolate. And this is key. It's not something you can learn in a classroom. It has to be earned through prayer. It's won in private, in what he calls the prayer closet, long before a preacher ever even thinks about stepping onto the public stage. And that brings us to this idea of the prayer closet, which is just absolutely central to everything he's arguing. This is the place where unction is born, where the real battle is actually fought and won. And he gives us another incredible metaphor to think about. The pulpit, he warns, can so easily become a shop window to display our talents, a place for a public performance. The prayer closet, on the other hand, speaks death to display. It's a private, humble place where our self-reliance and pride go to die, and where a real reliance on God is born. So here's the bottom line for Ravenhill. The outcome of a sermon is decided way before it's ever delivered. It's not about how eloquent you are or the clever intellectual bullets you fire from the stage. The victory is won or lost in private, in prayer. The sermon is really just the public announcement of a battle that's already taken place. You know, for Ravenhill, this wasn't just some abstract theological debate. This was real. He believed the church was in an actual crisis, and this issue of prayerless, unctionless preaching had consequences of the highest order. And to really get his sense of urgency, you've got to put yourself in his shoes at the time he was writing. He looked out and saw what he called the twin evils of communism and Romanism, which was his term for the institution of the Catholic Church. And he saw them as these massive, confident forces commanding the culture, commanding the street. Meanwhile, he felt his own church was just passively watching from the sidewalk. I mean, you can just feel the fire in his words here, can't you? He's calling for an end to what he sees as this weak, anemic, palsied preaching. He contrasts a message that's born in a tomb, a dead intellectual exercise, with one that's born in a womb, a living, breathing spiritual reality. And that life, he says, can only come from a soul that is on fire with prayer. And that all leads to this, his final, booming command, the thesis of this whole thing. In a world that's always telling you to get an education, get wealth, get ahead, Ravenhill's plea is so simple and direct. Above all else, with everything you get unction. You know, what's wild is that Ravenhill wrote this decades ago, but his challenge, doesn't it feel more relevant than ever? We're swimming in an age of slick TED Talks, viral videos, and perfectly polished presentations. His work really forces us to stop and ask, what is the real difference between a message that's just clever and one that carries true, life-changing power? What does it even mean today to have unction?